Travis Wingus. Back from my run, 70 degrees, so I'm sweating like a pig, which doesn't sweat. They roll in the mud to cool themselves off. So today's Father's Day. I get to celebrate by not having my kids love me. Yay. But the most famous Mormon father of all, Brother Smart. What? Huh? Is that Elizabeth's father? Yeah, Elizabeth Smart. We now understand, as we've been told by the news and the police, that Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped when she was 14 years old by Brian David Mitchell and was raped and was found and restored to her parents. So they get to have a happy Father's Day. But when it first happened, nobody really knew what happened, because the parents find out the next morning Elizabeth's gone. That's all they know. They don't know she's kidnapped. They don't know if she ran away. They don't know. That's the only thing they know, is she's gone. She's a minor. She's in the custody of her parents, and the parents have lost her. She escaped the custody of her parents, and so yes, her parents are rightly concerned whether or not they love her or not. But again, we don't know. We don't know what happened. All we know is that the parents have to call in a missing child's report, missing child. They later, after the disappearance of Amber, created the Amber Alert for Utah, rather than calling it the Elizabeth Alert or the Smart Alert or whatever. And so the police need to get involved. They know nothing about what's going on either. They don't know if the parents murdered the child. They don't know if the child ran away because the parents were mean and abusive and didn't give her a new Barbie for Christmas, or who knows. They don't know if she was kidnapped. So they have to investigate. They have to find out the truth about what really happened. Because if there was a crime involved, then they would need to present that to prosecution for a lawsuit, a criminal lawsuit. But they don't know who, if at all, and thus the need for an investigation. And so they don't say, well, I heard that so-and-so was a friend of Elizabeth Smart, and they had a disagreement once, and the person said, I'm going to kill you. Okay, the police will put it on the back burner because they have to wait for evidence to come in as to what happened. If it turns out she was murdered, now that hearsay claim has substance. And so I hope you understand that general concept of what we've all come to know from what we've been informed. And so, yes, they have to, how do we know she was pregnant? Well, that's an obvious one. But who is the father? You have to do DNA tests of the fetus. But how did they find out through the fetus? Isn't abortion illegal in Utah? Well, yeah, they couldn't do it in Utah because of Utah's laws saying, well, if you're past this term, you have to have the baby. And so Utah has purposely delayed cases to force women who want the abortion to have the baby instead. That's how mean they are. And so you'd think that Utah legislation would say, maybe we should reevaluate our abortion laws so that one of our precious Mormon daughters does not fall victim to our laws. And so, yeah, she had to go to Wyoming. But yeah, you just do DNA of the fetus to confirm, yes, Brian David Mitchell is the father. And it doesn't matter if Brian says, oh, it was consensual. She wanted me. I'm the Messiah. It doesn't matter. She's underage. She's in the custody of her parents. She has no rights other than through her parents, who are to take care of her and give her her rights. Not Brian David Mitchell. There was no signed contract giving up Elizabeth to Brian David Mitchell. And it was not under duress if there ever was one. So you see, those are the kinds of things that the police, who know nothing of the case, have to check out. They have to check out every possible scenario. They can't just dismiss it because they're Mormon and it's a Mormon girl who was kidnapped. They can't jump to conclusions. They can't assume. And so, yes, we can go to the Daybells, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. It is now confirmed that their children were murdered. Were buried in the backyard of Chad Daybell's house in Rexburg. They are not releasing how they died. That's done specifically because they want to trip up Chad Daybell into confessing things that were not released to the public, so that the real killer will be identified. That's how they do that. And so that's why they don't like the news at the scene of a crime, because then you get copycat killers and you get people who are making accusations. Oh yeah, I saw a man and he was there at that corner as I saw on the news. You get false reports because the news is tampering with the crime scene, even though the news thinks that they have a right to cover the story. Well, you have to wait until after the police do their investigation. And so that's how things are set up for crime investigation. Same processes are to be used for historical investigation, whether it be archaeology or rather just history research in the not too distant future or past. So LDS church history. Big debate on LDS church history. Why? Because we've caught the church lying to us about their own church history. And so what then is the truth? We have critics who are making all sorts of claims, because of the tampering of the evidence scene, but that's because of the church's tampering, not because of the actual scene. Nobody is going to the primary source. Uh-oh, I sense a sneeze coming on. And so, again, Joseph Smith, was he a polygamist? Well, you have books. No Man Knows My History, Rough Stone Rolling, and other claims by women who claim, again, this is hearsay. These women are claiming, oh yeah, Joseph approached me, he wanted to have me as a second wife, and I was going to be the first wife once Emma was murdered. Nothing like that, but women did claim that Joseph approached them. women did claim, yeah, Joseph had sex, and this child is not yours, honey, it's Joseph's. There were those claims. Now, are they true? Oh, well, I believe those women. Those women need to be heard, and I believe those women. That's not how it works. Those have to be put on the back burner until we can obtain actual evidence that Joseph Smith did have sex or proposition them. Just because they said so doesn't make it so. It's just hearsay. It's an accusation. It's a serious accusation, but we don't know anything because we weren't there, and so there are other possibilities, such as they're lying. They now have DNA research. All DNA research has been done on the descendants of those claiming that that child was Joseph's. Guess what? They lied. Our critics who are trusting these liars, still trusting the liars, despite the evidence saying, nope, they lied. Are you? The wonderful, great and spacious building, or whatever that channel name is, taking from the Book of Mormon, Great and Spacious Building. Maybe it is just Great and Spacious Building. Are those two women who are so anti-Joseph because they trust the church's lies that Joseph was a polygamist? Do they understand this? They do their videos hating Joseph for polygamy based on the hearsay rather than doing an investigation of the actual facts. See, because Joseph promoted the Book of Mormon, and the Book of Mormon denounces polygamy 3 times. First with Jacob talking to the people of the Nephites after they had fled the Lamanites, and saying, hey, stop it, no polygamy. I don't know that there could have been a lot of people at that time to have polygamy, but nonetheless, he says, our father said no. So then the next one, actually the first one is the Great and Abominable Church. The Great and Abominable Church has as one of its evils polygamy. It's not called polygamy. It's like harlots, multiple women that they have sex with, and so again, it denounces polygamy and all forms of sexual deviance away from a man and a woman having sex in the family and the traditional family that Republicans push on everybody, to take away their agency to go to a lesser kingdom of glory. I don't want to go to this lesser kingdom, Mom. I want to be telestial. I want to be with Hitler. You do understand that, right? Hitler did not elevate to the status of son of perdition. He's only in the telestial kingdom because that's where murderers and such go. And so he gets a kingdom of glory. And so what would you need to do? Not only is the Book of Mormon, the third one, by the way, in case you're like, what's the third one? King Noah. Oh, right. Yeah. And so then you look to the Doctrine and Covenants. Well, we see section 132. Oh, I'm supposed to have 10 virgins, Mom. I have to go to the celestial kingdom, so I need to find 10 virgins. I'm going to go to the younger singles ward as a near-death man because I need to become celestial. Hey, baby, Want to be celestial? Oh, so yeah, and so obviously it says Joseph Smith wrote it, so I guess he wrote it. Oh, he's threatening the life of Emma. I guess he wrote it because it says he wrote it. Again, do your history. When was that put in the Doctrine and Covenants? Oh, the year before Brigham Young died? Really? Huh. Well, how would you know that? Well, you'd have to get a Doctrine and Covenants prior to 1876. And we can find an 1844 version after Joseph Smith died. Brigham Young had put in some additional sections into the Doctrine and Covenants, and so there's an 1844 version of the Doctrine and Covenants. Well, is that the one we need to go by? Could be, but there was another one before that, 1835. So you need to find the 1835 version. Was there another one before that? Yes, there was. It was not called the Doctrine and Covenants. It was called the Book of Commandments. These are crucial if you're going to establish whether or not Joseph Smith practiced polygamy. You need to go from the source and follow it. When were the changes made? Why were the changes made? Are there corroborating evidences that Joseph Smith wrote 132? No. Section 85, yes. Section 85 was also put in the 1876 version with the 132. And so we had confirmed 85 because that was in the times and seasons. But we can't confirm 132. There are lots of hearsay that we have to set aside who claim, oh yeah, it came out in 1832 and Joseph, an angel appeared to him with a sword saying, you better practice it publicly immediately or I'm going to smite you with this sword. Well, he went till 1844 and never practiced it except for in secret and wasn't smitten immediately, because that's like 12 years. Is that immediate? To be murdered on this Saturday is his the remembrance. It's not an anniversary, it's a remembrance of his murder in Carthage jail. And is the church planning on celebrating it? I'd be surprised if they even acknowledged it. They're all about July 24th. I was pissed last year and the year before. They do not acknowledge Joseph Smith other than when they need to. It's all about Brigham, Utah. And so these things are crucial. If those two hilarious ex-Mormons are to be correct as to whether or not Joseph Smith actually practiced polygamy, if he actually raped the 14-year-old housemaid, if he actually had sex with those women and had children with them. Because remember, the 14-year-old, she never got pregnant. Wouldn't they get her pregnant? They didn't have condoms. There were no Trojans back then. No birth control pills. So they would have to time it during her menstrual cycle, if you know anything about getting a woman pregnant. And so those things need to be factored in. So again, if you're investigating, you need to find out when the woman's menstrual cycle was. If you know when, on what day, Joseph Smith was accused of being seen with her and accused of having sex with her. And I'm sure women understand that, right? Just because you're being accused of having sex with a guy, if you can time it for your menstrual cycle, that can be tested and found out. So they can find out if you were trying to get away with it. They can find out if you went to Las Vegas from BYU for the weekend so that you can get married in the Elvis Temple of Love for the weekend and then get it annulled before you go back to BYU again. There are ways to find that out. Those are paper trails and so forth. So yeah, and in rape cases such as Elizabeth's, a DNA test. You know, her initial rape, there is no rape kit, but there is a baby that resulted. And there was none with the 14-year-old. And so David Whitmer, oh yeah, I knew that's what happened, because yeah, I knew. Did you? Did you see them having sex? Did you catch the adulteress in the very act, as you claim? Well then, by all means, pick up a stone and huck it at her. All right. If you saw the Simpsons episode on that, those of you without sin, cast the first stone. There was more to it in the actual gospel version of the events that was not quite told to us. And so, again, you know, the Danites, that's the thing I've been doing lately, is because a guy pretending to be John D. Lee came onto my channel and told me that I was unfaithful. And so when you know about John D. Lee, you'd find out through investigation. And I had to let go Samuel DeWolf. He never became a subscriber to me, but I did know him of his situation and family origin, which is why he never became a subscriber. But for him to have made contact with me and we've come to understand each other after all these months, to finally come back and pull that crap. I heard. I don't care what you heard. Look at the facts. He was found guilty and was executed for it. It doesn't matter if Brigham Young threw him under the bus. It wasn't Brigham Young who rode out on his horse down to the pioneers who were traveling by that day and slaughtered them. It was the bishop and his elders. And I'm surprised none of the others got excommunicated, let alone executed for the crimes of helping him, because John D. Lee didn't do it all by himself. And so, again, there was no way Brigham Young could have thrown him under the bus. Brigham Young could have said, nope, he did it all by himself. I had nothing to do with it. That's not throwing him under the bus. That's lying to protect your own ass. But Brigham Young was involved. Whether or not Brigham Young knew of their coming and gave a direct order, kill them, or if Brigham Young from the beginning said, hey, John, I want you to go down and be a bishop and settle on that land down there. Anybody that comes by, kill him. That also counts. Because even though Brigham Young knew nothing of that Mountain Meadows Pilgrim pioneers, that does not excuse him if he gave an original order from the beginning. Now, if Brigham Young did not tell John D. Lee to go and murder anybody that comes by, or did not know of their coming to give the order to murder them, and was clearly innocent and knew nothing of it, then yes, Brigham Young would be innocent. However, John D. Lee was a Danite. And when you know of the Danite history, then you know that Brigham Young is not innocent. Because Brigham Young converted the Danites. They were those of the Scottish Rites Freemasonry that had been infiltrated by the Illuminati. And again, I had to do that research. Not rely on hearsay. And you're probably going, well, I never even heard of that hearsay. Yeah, I found it from my research. Nobody else knows about it. And so, like I've been trying to go over with you, Canandaigua. And so, when you're doing church history, you come across the Canon of Scripture for Mormons, Joseph Smith history. He starts off by saying, I have parents, Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy Mack. And so what you do, you don't start with Joseph, you go to his father. Who is his father? What did he do? My mom says our dad is a real sex machine. Kindergarten cop with Schwarzenegger. It's not a tumor. It could be a tumor. It's not a tumor. He was in the news yesterday. He went to his Gold's Gym that he always goes to and has been promoting this whole time. And he wanted to go and do weights now that they've reopened. But when he got there, no one was wearing a mask. And the workers said, well, the state sort of allows them to not wear a mask, and we aren't holding them to a higher standard. And so Schwarzenegger walked out. Yeah, that's not good when the Terminator terminates you. Okay, so Joseph Smith Sr. So, oh my goodness, there's a Wikipedia page on him. How did that happen? That's amazing. I just Google searched and there it is. I've already done all this. And so you've got to pay attention with Wikipedia when it comes to the church. Because there are situations that need addressing. For example, you will notice Joseph Sr. was also a member of the first presidency of the church and a Freemason in Ontario Lodge number 23 of Canandaigua, New York. But it says citation needed. This claim needs references to reliable sources. They have them. It's called the Canandaigua Lodge Records. I confirmed it. And there are others, famous Mormons. They went and got the lodge records. And yes, Joseph Sr. is listed. Hiram is listed in Palmyra. And Brigham Young's brothers are listed. But Scottish Rites, ooh, wait a minute. Is Smith a Scottish Rites? Is the Ontario Lodge number 23 of Canandaigua, New York, is that Scottish Rites also? No, it's York. And so, despite Wikipedia following the church's orders to not put a citation in there, you still need to now find out all you can about Freemasonry and about the York rites, as well as Scottish rites and others potentially. Again, those are on the back burner until you can find something that brings them back into the investigation. But here we have York rites. And so now you need to study York rites. Well, what's in York rites? What's the ranking? Well, the highest rank is called the Knights Templar. Oh yeah, I've heard about them. That's the Friday the 13th thing, isn't it? Exactly. You now need to do your investigation into the Knights Templar and their whole background history, because it involves Solomon's Temple. Have you noticed in the Book of Mormon that Nephi, when he flees from his brother Laman, they build a temple. What temple? What was the design after? Let's see, Temple of Solomon. Is it fine? Yep. And I, Nephi, did build a temple, and did construct it after the manner of the Temple of Solomon. That was stone. And so I'm sorry, Mormons who have theorized that Western New York did not have stone buildings. This takes away from Solomon Spaulding's manuscript, because in Solomon Spaulding's manuscript, no stone buildings. It's the 116 pages that were replaced that have a stone building, the Temple of Solomon. Save it were not built of so many precious things. But then a little later on they say that there were gold and silver in abundance. What? What? And so when you understand that this is encoded, this is the Freemasonry. This is why Martin Harris got uncomfortable with the first 116 pages, that Joseph Smith blew it. And so, yes, that should be ringing bells, because yes, you need to investigate the Book of Mormon. You need to investigate what's written in the Book of Mormon in the context of church history, the real history of what happened. And so when you come across Temple of Solomon, and you come across not just Freemasonry, but York rites, and the Book of Mormon claims to have been buried gold plates, though apologists try to claim, no, they said golden, so it could have been copper. No, you don't want to go into copper because that will expose what happened. Mormon apologists don't understand that if you try to apologize by lying, and they even have golden plates there, what do you know? You're going to expose the truth, and you don't want to expose the truth. All defense lawyers know this. You don't throw things out that are going to lead to the prosecution finding out that the client is actually guilty. You know, like the church lawyers did in my case. They filed finally 11 days late. And it was actually 12, I guess, because it was on the 11th. They submitted, well, I guess it was on the 10th, so it was 11 days late. But they didn't serve me. The clerks let them get away with filing without serving me. You're supposed to put in a certificate of service with your filing. Otherwise, the clerks have to say, you didn't put in the certificate, I'm sorry, we can't accept this yet. For the very reason, I'm left out of the equation. So, I found out that they had filed. But on the online docket. I did not receive it. So I therefore sent in a motion, which was my 14-day response time to their motion to dismiss, saying I have 14 days to respond because I was not served with the motion to dismiss. So I'm only going to do it with what I know on hand. The defense lawyers obviously got served that reply, because they then mailed on the 23rd my copy of the motion to dismiss. The church lawyers admitted to not serving me on time and admitted that I had replied within 14 days, because they then served me now 24 days late. And so when the new judge said that, oh, well, you confirmed that you had received the motion on the 23rd, so I'm dismissing your motion to strike, their motion to dismiss. So I slammed her and told you exactly told her what I had just told you, of the sequence of events that confirm that they were late and that I had filed on time, that the clerks were involved in covering up the situation. And so yes, the clerks also confessed by doing it right with those filings. And so that's how you expose people, is when they try to cover up their crimes, when they try to do things right all of a sudden. That's a confession. It's not a direct confession. It's a confession by association of trying to fix things. And so gold plates buried in the ground in America. If you learn about the Knights Templar, that all makes sense. But if you're only going to read Mormonism and the Magic World View, you're going to miss it. You're going to be led on a strange and dark, misty path leading to the great and spacious building. Sorry, Quinn, you got to do better as a church historian. So, what happened in Canandaigua? Well, we eventually come across Heber C. Kimball in our research, and if you don't know to check for these other characters that are involved with Canandaigua, but you are a regular church historian or investigator, you would eventually come across Heber C. Kimball. And under the Wikipedia page for Heber C. Kimball, there you have a thing on masonry. Oh, isn't that interestingly? Oh, Smith Sr. was a Mason. I wonder if they were of the same masonry. Well, it says under masonry in 1823, Kimball received the 3 craft degrees. Well, you had just done a whole thing on masonry. You don't go 3 degrees in 1 year. Because you learned Smith became a master mason in 1818, but named his son Hiram after Hiram Abiff in 1800. 18 years for Smith Sr., but Kimball did it in 1 year. And wait a minute, 3rd degree, that's master mason. He would get his own lodge. Where's his lodge? if he got the 3 degrees from the Victor Flats, Ontario County, New York Lodge, which is red, by the way, it's gone. He's claiming it was destroyed in 1826 and that there were no records. But Victor Flats is in Scottish Rites territory, not York Rites territory. They had him zoned out in strips, north and south strips. And so it's like marking their territory, like a gang or a mob or something. And so, did he not receive a lodge? Because Smith Sr. did. That's what happens when you become a Master Mason. You get your own lodge. There's missing information here. There's contradicting information here. And it goes on, because in 1824 he sent a petition to the chapter at Canandaigua. Smith Sr. was still the Master Mason there. Remember, 1818. It wasn't until 1826 when it all stopped. So 1824, Smith Sr. was there. Why are they not mentioning this on a Mormon site about Masonry? There's a connection. They're not telling us the connection. And if you do these separately, and do Smith Sr. 1 year, and then the next year finally get around to Heber C. Kimball, are you going to remember that Smith Sr. was in Canandaigua? Are your notes that organized to find it? And so, yeah, they confirm that Canandaigua was York Rite. And he's requesting a Royal Arch Masonry. Oh, okay. Oh, wait a minute. You did study on Freemasonry and the York Rites. Royal Arch is 7 degrees. He only got 3 degrees. He's jumping to 7, skipping 4, 5, and 6. Again, contradictory information. There's something wrong in this entry on Wikipedia. Something desperately wrong. But you have to put it aside, because Royal Arch comes up again with Canandaigua. And now you can then bring that in when you find that person with those two connections. And it should be something that you should be looking for, because it goes on to say his petition was accepted. Smith Sr. accepted it, but they don't say Smith Sr. And what? Although, now here's his excuse, as he reported, which means that it's the family of the Kimballs. Let's see, is that Orson F. Whitney in 1888 wrote the book Life of Heber C. Kimball, Apostle, Father, and Founder of the British Mission. Salt Lake City, Utah, Kimball family, page 27. Sorry guys, we can't trust it as a primary source. You have to have his actual journal entry for us to use. And so what we have clearly is wrong. So the question is this what Heber C. Kimball said? And the family is just saying, well, this is what he said. Or is the Kimball family withholding information and giving us this BS instead to cover up what he actually said? Because he says anti-Masons had burned down the chapter building in Canandaigua. They kept the records. The records were still available. Oops. If you're going to lie, you need to make sure your lie is consistent and will not be contradicted by anybody rising from the dead, for example. Or documents rising from the dead. Remember the papyri? Everybody thought it was burned in the Chicago fire. But then, in 1968, the church gets the papyri back from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. It was found in their hidden chambers. And so, you would now need to find out anti-Masons. Well, they have a link, and you can hover over it. The Anti-Masonic Party, also known as the Anti-Masonic Movement, was the first third party in the United States. It strongly opposed Freemasonry as a single-issue party, and later aspired to become a major party by expanding its platform to take positions on other issues, and emerging as a political force in the... So we got to click on it to find out what more is happening. In the second paragraph, the party was founded in the aftermath of the disappearance of William Morgan, a former Mason who had ultimately become a prominent critic of the Masonic organization. Well, yeah, they're not giving us any information here. Well, let's click on William Morgan's site, see what they have. He was a resident of Batavia, New York. And so you can click on, well, you can do research to find out that Batavia was a York Rites. Book on Freemasonry. No, it wasn't his book. Morgan claimed to have been made a Master Mason while he lived in Canada. And it's Ellis, Edward Sylvester, 1920, Low 12, By Their Deeds Ye Shall Know Them, New York, New York, McCoy Publishing, and Masonic Supply Company. Again, that's hearsay. Nevertheless, he briefly attended a lodge in Rochester, doing a book on that thing. Again, don't quote authors. The authors are supposed to go to the evidence, go to their evidence, not the authors. Wikipedia should know better. In 1825, Joseph Smith Sr., Master Mason in Canandaigua, Heber C. Kimball, says in 1824, I was approved in Canandaigua to be a Royal Ark Mason. In 1825, Morgan received the Royal Ark degree at Leroy's Western Star, chapter number 33, having declared under oath that he had previously received the 6 degrees that preceded it. Now those are on record, and they didn't put the record in there as the references. They put authors' books. And so they claim that it's never established that he received those degrees. Well, it doesn't matter. He got the Royal Ark. That's on record. So it doesn't matter if he received the previous ones or not. He was approved and got the Royal Ark degree. that Heber C. Kimball said he also received from Joseph Smith Sr. without saying Joseph Smith Sr. was the one who gave it to him. Let's see. His disappearance. Under his disappearance, there is, in the first paragraph, the part that starts with, Morgan was jailed in Canandaigua. What do you know? And so now we have William Morgan in 1826 arrested and jailed in Canandaigua, where fellow Yorkwright's brother, Joseph Smith Sr., is the Master Mason of Canandaigua, where Heber C. Kimball said, I got the Royal Ark, like William Morgan, in Canandaigua, which is York Rights, not Scottish Rights, where I got the first 3 degrees, by Joseph Smith Sr., of whom I am not saying it was him. Do you see how we've just dropped a bombshell in church history research? Canandaigua. That's how you do church history research. You don't listen to the hearsay. You don't listen to the accusations. They are a last resort after you've discovered the evidence. Because now you can take the hearsay that relates to it and say, nope, you're wrong, the facts don't support your claim, or the evidence don't support your claim. See, with Heber C. Kimball, evidence doesn't support his claim. That's not how things are done. You left out information that was crucial. And so we can't trust Heber. But we can trust William Morgan was in the know with Joseph Smith Sr., likewise knowing each other. And so this disappearance, they never talk about Joseph Sr. All that is missing. But the investigation should have gone to him, because 3 Masons helped him escape and were put on trial for his murder when they actually helped him escape. They were found guilty but got a slap on the wrist. The sheriff who performed the investigation hired a tracker who tracked William Morgan into Canada and then to the port on the East Coast, where he took off by boat and the trail was lost. Except we have the manifest of that ship and we know what happened. The sheriff was punished with years of imprisonment for just investigating, for doing his job. It was clear they wanted him silenced. Don't you reveal what happened. Well, wait a minute. He was falsely arrested. They had to sneak him out of the country, and the sheriff, who realized that they snuck him out, he was trying to expose William Morgan and was putting his life in danger by doing his job. And Smith Sr. now writes the book that William Morgan never wrote. Now you are beginning in the realms of the real church history. Now you understand why LDS critics are saying, hey, the Book of Mormon is plagiarized. But those critics don't know why it's plagiarized. They don't know why certain books were put in certain places in the Book of Mormon. They don't know why it talks about Babylon at the beginning, and then in the Doctrine and Covenants it says in section 1 in our current Doctrine and Covenants that Babylon will fall after Joseph Smith, when it already fell under the Persians. Coding. This is how I did my research. I did not rely on rough stone rolling. I did not rely on no man knows my history. I did not rely on Mormonism and the magic worldview. I did not rely on etc. I just demonstrated to you how I did my research. And I took notes, and I published those notes. But then I did an actual history from my research, and I published that. And I did videos under Real LDS History, under that playlist on this channel. That's how investigations are to be performed. Just as in Elizabeth Smart's case, just as in all cases. You can't just trust what anybody tells you because you like what they say. Yeah, it'd be great to find out Joseph worshiped the devil and all that, but it's not true. You can't trust it. You can't embrace it. You can't spread it to other people if it's not true. You have to find out if it's true first. And so as I'm lately emphasizing the inverted pentagram at Temple Square, that's because I've done the research. I'm not telling you to cause contention, try to shame the church and get people to turn on the church. No, the church has those signs on Temple Square. And the symbolism is independent. And the symbolism condemns the church. It's not me with my opinions. Premises lead to the conclusion. The evidence that I find lead to the facts. I don't let my conclusions tamper with the evidence, because that's not how you do it. So I'm sorry I had to let Samuel DeWolf go. But for him to try to excuse the murder of John D. Lee was inexcusable. And I had to let him go. So do your church history right. Don't just trust the church because you're in the church. Don't just go against the church because you've left the church. Because of what they said, that they've lied to you and that they make all sorts of accusations now. Okay, 1 minute. Wow.